Hello. Welcome to Marrying Myself. I'm a moment late. Sorry about that. A few moments. I'm Rosa Linda Román. I go by Rosa Linda. And this is my new project. It's called Marrying Myself because the idea is as I move into this next chapter of my life, after raising 3 kids, and now 2 of them are off to college, and the third one is already learning to drive and a few years away from being out the door as well. I started shifting my how I spend my time and what I do to set up the next chapter of life. The first thing is I started writing. I became a full-time author, and here's a few of my books back here. I wrote Death Wounds is the first book in the conspiracy thriller series called Catalina's Chronicles. It's now a complete 5-book series. And I also wrote Losing Sight of the Shore, which is my memoir about living on a boat. Those are my 3 kids and our German Shepherd, our fur baby, Nala. So that was how I've spent the last 2 years, really transitioning to focusing on creating work that creating a body of work that I'm proud of. And it gives me, like what I'm going to be doing as like my career, if you will, next. But as I wrapped up that series in April, the 5th book was was published. I realized I needed to really think about how I wanted to spend my time next. And it occurred to me that I started seeing everybody else's input. I saw this course or that course, everybody's, different things that people were offering, people's offers. And I love a good course. I love learning. And so I realized it would be very easy for me to fill the time that I had been spending on creating the thriller series, filling it with other people's input, or courses or whatever. But I didn't want to do that. I had also this realization that I have a lot of content that I've been creating over the years, but it never saw the light of day. I was focused on raising my kids, being a partner to my husband, who delightfully, we're still very much happily married after almost 28 years. But I knew I needed to really focus on my own wisdom. So I rediscovered some of my stuff. And by stuff, I mean, I had bins of journals and I have videos and photos and things from my archives that I really wanted to spend this next season curating, going through, seeing what still resonates, what still sparks joy for me. And in the process of doing that, I realized I kind of had the fun idea that it's like marrying myself, like when you are going to get married and you fall in love with someone, you want to discover everything about them, right? So for me, I was like, okay, well, marrying myself, if I'm marrying myself and I'm focusing on my own wisdom and the things that I've written and done and experienced over the years that still sparks joy, then it seemed like a nice shift in focus to marry myself. Nothing to do with my marriage or my relationship with my kids. We're all good. Now it's my relationship with myself. So each week, what I do, I'm still refining this project, but I'm really excited about how it's starting to take shape. In theory, I'm going to post a post each week, ideally by the end of work on Friday. And then on every Monday, I'm going to have a live stream. And the live stream is where I flesh out whatever it was that I had in the post. So let's start with the post. Let's see if I can pull that up really quickly. Give me 1 second. My post is live and I have to share it. By the way, my background is that I am a broadcast journalist. So I have been actually doing live streaming since it first became a thing. And I've been podcasting since 2007. So this is kind of my area of expertise. But of course, my main area of expertise is raising awesome kids, right, for the past 20 some years. Okay, so this is my post that just went up. It's called Creating Sanctuaries. And so that I just posted it last night in the wee hours of the morning. But in theory, as I get better at doing this and being more consistent, I'll try to get it posted by Friday. And then as you look through that post, you'll see it kind of goes into whatever's sparking joy for me that week. But then I break it down into 4 categories. So we're going to talk about some of these things that you're seeing in this post. But basically, the 4 categories are something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. And I break up the something old into something old and rotten, which we want to do away with, and something old and precious, which is something that I'm rediscovering or usually about myself. So then again, there's something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. And just so you know, if you're here live, you can put a comment in the section. Let's see. So, for example, if I write, if you're here, drop a comment. And then if I do this, watch, it's kind of fun. If you have any interest in learning, I can teach people about how to do this. But see how I said, if you're here, drop a comment. So if you are here live, either on Facebook or YouTube or right here on Substack, which is the main place that I have this project, Marrying Myself, let me know that you're here, and I can pop it up on the screen like this. And by the way, I didn't change the name. You can see at New Mexicast. That's my brand. When I first left the mainstream media, I was the main anchor in Monterey, California, when my first daughter was born. And when I left to become a full-time mom, about 2 years after becoming a mom, I launched my first video podcast. That was called New Mexicast, and the archives are still out there. And then it became New Mexicastaways when my family moved on to the Sailing Catamaran. Okay, so that is how you do that. So if you're here, please, throughout the show, feel free to drop a comment in or just say hi, and that's great. You can always put in parentheses if you don't want me to share your comment and you just want it to be for me to see. So that would be great. All right, so let's get started. I'm a little frazzled today. I wonder if I could pull it up. Hang on a second. I'm going to see if I can find a photo. I was going to say I wondered why it is that bears seem to know when it's garbage day. And so I'm going to show you, let me pull this up real quickly. It's funny because I was working on that video that I'm going to show you in a minute, late last night. All right, let's see, Google Photos. Okay, so this is Nala, by the way. She had a rough night and I had a rough night because the bears, which we have a bunch of bears, living in our forest, we live up in the mountains. They were getting in our garbage, and I don't know why and how they know that it's garbage day, but they sure did, and they pulled it all over the place. Let me see, one more thing I want to find before I dig into this. I wanted to show you what the bears look like. I didn't get a picture of it last night, but we did get a video the other day. But I don't know if I can pull that up quickly, but I can show you a picture. This is what one of the bears that visits us looks like. Let's see if I can share that. Share screen, and there you go. So that is the bear that probably was the one that dug in our garbage last night and made Nala go crazy and made it so I did not sleep much last night. So if during this broadcast, this live stream, you find that I'm kind of drifting, know that it's the bear's fault. Okay. And, being Packers fans, I can say it's always the bear's fault. I say that because my whole family's in Chicago. Okay. All right. So back to the show, Marrying Myself. Like I said, I break it down into sections. And the first one is something old. Okay. Talking about something old and rotten, besides the garbage, the thing that came up for me this week was something old and let me pull it up. Hang on one second. The thing that I want to do away with, that I want to throw out with the garbage that's strewn all over the forest, hopefully not, is the idea of unclean communication. And by that, I mean the ways people manipulate each other. That's the old and rotten thing. The ways that people don't do the things they need to do when it comes to relationships. And when I say people, I'm talking about myself. This project is about me focusing on what do I want for the next chapter. So what I want to do away with is any times that I have that like needy, grabby energy, which is an expression I learned from one of my favorite coaches, Serena Hicks. And just the idea that like somehow we use our words or our behaviors to manipulate others, and in particular people that we love. So that's the old rotten thing. And this week in the post, I share a woman's post, which is this midlife reckoning. Is the lady, her name is Dr. Heather England, and she did this really interesting post called "I Thought I Had Done the Work." And she basically talks about sending a text to her adult children over Memorial Day weekend. It's a really interesting read, and it really made me think a lot about relationships and just the little subtle ways that we sometimes say, well, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you. And that's not what she was doing. I actually respect deeply how she was brave and shared her experience, which I thought was very helpful, because it pulled out a lot of thoughts that I have when it comes to relationships, especially as my children are becoming independent adults, right? And making sure that when I communicate with them, I do it in a clean way. But it's the comment section of this post, by the way, that I really think is worth taking a minute and reading, because it made me at least, it made me think about how, first of all, there's always more than one way to interpret somebody's story or a situation. So in the comment section, she wrote about, she had written what she wrote, and it was her journey, and she was very brave and vulnerable, sharing that journey of self-discovery and realizing, oh, I don't really want to continue doing that, whatever that thing was that she had been doing with her kids, which is great. I think that's what we're all trying, like those of us that are doing our work, that's what we try to do. We look at an area that we miss the mark, don't really love it, and we work on it. And the fact that she shared that so that other people can learn from that, I think is very brave. But in the comment section, some people lambasted her, some people lambasted her children, and it was very interesting to me. But for me, what I took away from it was the realization that I do that sometimes, and people I love do that sometimes, right? And as I'm moving into this next phase, the Marrying Myself focused phase, where I center my own wisdom, I think it's really important that I work on clean communication, being clear about my wants and needs and desires and boundaries too. So that is the old and rotten thing that I want to do away with. And in that second part of the post, I also mentioned, something else, something that I mentioned related to that was an old journal that I read from my high school years, and that's what most of this show today is going to be about. I have been digging in old journals and like mind-blowing. I've been writing journals since I was in my teenage years. So one of the things that came up from this for the old and rotten part was a journal, which I'll talk about in a minute, but it's this journal from my high school years. And it really reminded me of what happens when communication isn't clean. And especially when that, like, manipulative or just not honest communication is with myself. Even in my journals, as I've read through it, I cringe. I cringe at some of the things that are in the journals. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. But it's more what I didn't write, and the number of times that I even filtered what I was writing to myself for fear of how someone else might respond if they read it. So that's the old and rotten. Something old and rotten that I want to do away with is the old and rotten tendency to not have, I called it in the post, cryptic communication. I don't want cryptic communication. I want clean communication. Okay, now more on to the fun stuff. I try not to harp too much on the old and rotten stuff. Otherwise, that's going to be in the garbage for the bears. So now on to this old and precious stuff. Now, I wonder if I could get up and show you without too much trouble. Let's see if I lose my audio. Give me 1 second so I can clip it on. If you look at that shelf, that is a shelf full of my personal journals. And there's many more, I know, in the garage, but those are journals from like way back, even as far back as 1984, when I was, how old was I? I may have been in junior high, or certainly early high school, when I was writing some of these journals. So that's been an interesting thing. And that old and precious process has been really fun. So let me see if that's my old and precious. No, that's my new. Okay, so old and precious. I'll just read a little something that I pulled out from. Okay, so as I mentioned, I was a TV news reporter, and in 1999, when it was turning from 1999 to 2000, I was a reporter at KOAT 7 here in the Albuquerque area. And I just pulled out so I've overhauled my little office nook area. And in the process, I've been pulling out all my journals. And I've been looking at some of these journals, and I'll share a lot more over time. And there's a lot of things that I'm not going to share because holy cow, what the heck was I thinking? But this one made me smile. This is December 28th. This is from this little journal, which used to be in a leather bound sleeve. And it's December 28th, 1999, Tuesday, 5:55 p.m. I'm going to read a little excerpt. Amazing. Only 3 days left till the new millennium. There's pretty much a consensus that we will celebrate New Year's Eve as the millennium celebration, but there is also considerable debate about whether 1/1/2000 is actually the first day of the next millennium. A lot of people are saying that the 2000 years making up the millennium are from the year 1 CE to the year 2001, because there was no year 0. While that may be accurate, I'm still of the opinion that the significant new year will be 2000, not 2001, for a few reasons. First, because after being in the prefix 19 all our lives, hitting the 20 prefix is just plain cool. I remember that, like, what a feeling to go my whole life. We lived in the 19s, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, and now we were going into the 20s, 2000s. Also, all those zeros are more interesting than zeros and a 1. And of course, 1/1/2000 will be when we find out if this Y2K computer bug really messes things up by reading the digits 00 as 1900 instead of 2000. Isn't that so funny? Now looking back at that, having like, I mean, of course, literally, I was mentioning this to my daughter and she's like, it's so ridiculous that people thought that's what was going to happen. And I'm like, yes, it feels ridiculous now looking back. But at the time, it wasn't ridiculous. Y2K was, people were scared. They thought markets were going to crash and all the computers wouldn't know what to do. They would just suddenly think it was 1900 and everything would be reset. Because remember, and she even, my daughter said, yeah, I guess computers weren't as advanced then as they are now. I'm like, not even close. I mean, we barely had email back then. Remember AOL and instant messenger? Ah. So like so many others, I will be looking at 1/1/2000 as a major moment, the turn of the century, the turn of the millennium, and the chance to take a new look at my life and make any changes that I need to make. It's a moment in history that will never be repeated, and I'm glad I get to be on the front lines for whatever happens that night and beyond. So that was from my journal from December 28th, 1999. So that right there encapsulates why I'm marrying myself. Because like, first of all, even just being aware of how that made me smile, and those were my own words. And looking back at the me that was looking forward to the new millennium. So that is the something old and precious for this week. Now on to the next category. Why do I have to? I keep putting my glasses on because I'm in denial that I need them. I probably should get contacts because I really do need them. And I don't like to wear glasses. All right, let's see where we are. Something old and now something new. So the something new for this week is that I realized as I started working through this process of figuring out, well, what is marrying myself? What does that mean when I'm focusing on my own wisdom? I realized my little nook, I'm in the back of a closet. It's awesome. I'll show you that in a second. I was surrounded by other people's wisdom and lots of wisdom that I love. Like it wasn't stuff that I was like, oh, I can't believe I have to listen to other people. Nothing like that. I love learning. I love getting input from other people. But I realized if I'm really focusing on centering my own wisdom through going through my old journals and through archives and really just kind of checking in with myself, I needed to surround myself with my own wisdom instead of everyone else's. And so I have overhauled my little nook and I made a little video with the help of, I have to tell you, it's, I tested out what it was like to use AI to help me edit. Descript, which is an app that I've been using to edit, has this thing called the Underlord. And let me see, I'll show it to you actually. That's the nice thing about live. I can do whatever I want. Let's see if I can show you the Underlord. Window, entire screen. Let's just do that. It'll look weird for a second, but that's fine. Okay, so this is Descript. And this is this little down here in the corner. Let's see if I can zoom in. I don't think I can. Anyway, it has this feature called the Underlord. It's like a little AI assistant because they say, Descript likes to say that everyone likes no one likes an overlord, but it's nice to have an underlord. Now, if you are new to my channel, you will know that I do not use AI. I'm not a fan of AI, but I was a certified pro in Final Cut. I was a professional editor. I ran an entire TV show by myself. So editing is kind of my jam, but it's also the way that I go deeply down the rabbit hole. And so as I started this project, I've realized I spend way too much time editing the little video packages that I'm including in these live streams, which I love, but I don't have time for. So one of the things I'm learning is to figure out what works for me, what doesn't work for me. And right now I'm not a fan of any kind of generative AI or language learning model kind of stuff. So AI is not a part of my writing process. No, it never anywhere in all my books are written the old school way with this brain, for better or worse. But I thought, okay, let me see if I can get them to this underlord to help me put some of these transitions together. And it worked. I see some places in the video that are very frustrating because they weren't as done as well as I would have done them as a professional editor, but it saved me, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say it saved me a lot of time, but the truth is, because I'm a perfectionist and I love editing, it probably added a lot more time. So let me just say, I see someone in the studio. If you're here, drop a little comment so I know that you're here. I would love to say hello. And I'm going to play the video to show you how this is the something new, where I overhauled my little sanctuary to center my own journals, my own wisdom first. So here we go.
Okay, so it's a day that I finally have a minute to start going through some of my stuff, and I realized I have a step before my sorting stuff step. This is my bin, if you'll recall from the previous episode. This is where my stickers are and so many journals, and I've pulled a few of them out a little bit and looked at them, and they are very exciting and spark joy for sure. Some of the things that I've written about are like, wow, I have come a long way. But I realized I have to do something first, because as I started going through that, I realized my writing space, my favorite, it's my little sanctuary. I'm going to show it to you right now, but um, it right now it's cluttered, and it doesn't reflect what I'm trying to move into, specifically marrying myself, right? So focusing on my wisdom and all of that. So knowing that that bin is full of my stuff, I wanted to take you into, I don't want to show you our mess, but this is my closet, right? A little closet, but in the back of the closet, I have this secret hideaway. So let me put this down here. Hang on, I have to turn on the light. So just stand by for a second. And let me turn on the light. There. Now, this place is my sanctuary. It's a tiny little corner of the closet, if you see, if you step out of it. It's just a closet, but I've converted it into my space. Got, place to hang out and do my writing. I've got my journal and my glass pen and all of that, which is wonderful. And I have a lot of things in here that spark joy, many things. And I realized I have a lot of, not a lot, but I have these shelves are full of other people's wisdom and other people's stuff. I also have a pile of junk on the floor. Whoops. That there's just a kind of a dead space back there. And got my writing on my dry erase board, which I always like. But behind here, behind my little bookshelf with my own books on it, which that's cool. Those are my books and my candles and my miscellaneous things. I've got boxes of stuff that need to be sorted. This suitcase is full of papers. All of this to say that I really want to turn this space into a place that helps me as I am moving through my marrying myself process, starting with pulling my journals and my own writing and wisdom and archives out from boxes and bins and centering that, because the idea is centering my own wisdom, centering the things that still spark joy for me instead of centering other people's wisdom. That doesn't mean I won't enjoy these books. I mean, I love going through some of these. There's the Tanakh there, there's She Who Dwells Within, which was written by the rabbi who converted me. So Rabbi Lynn Gottlieb. There's some really great stuff, the 5 books of Moses. There's even the Book of Mormon here from my dear friends. So there's lots of stuff that I reference and enjoy, but for this next project, I really want to focus on what do I already know? What is the wisdom that I've already curated in these journals that I have in boxes and bins? So, step one for me is to reconnect with my stuff instead of look, this is where it is at the moment. Hiding down there, I've got a few of my journals. I want to bring that out and make it front and center. So that's what I'm going to work on today.
Okay, I'm finally bringing this bin in. This is the bin that I brought with us to Taos, the one that had my sticker books in it. Oh, and now it's time to put them, take a look at all these journals that are in it and see where they belong. If you take a look, it's full of journals. So, and a few stickers that fell out from the sticker books, which you can see, where are they? Up there on the top shelf. See my sticker books up there? There they are. Anyway, so I'm gonna start digging in to this bin of journals, which I'm very excited about. These journals in here, I already know a lot of them are from when I was a teenager. I know these two right here were my teenage journals, including one of them I think is a book of poetry. Yep, it is my teenage poetry. The very first one is A Broken Heart. Oh, I wonder if I have dates in here. I just think I was probably 15, 16, 17, my collection of poems. I think I had written them at different times and then put them in here. Interesting. Writing, my only escape. My pen and paper are my only friends. The only one who will listen to everything I have to say without criticizing or laughing at my innermost feelings. Wow, was I a teenager, angsty teen, or what? Amazing. That's going to have lots of fodder for marrying myself. So, yes, it is. That whole bin has a lot of fodder for marrying myself. And it's so precious to go through this stuff, especially now that my daughters are in the age range that of when, well, they're a little older than that now, but the age ranges that I was writing that. My son is in the age range of when I wrote some of this stuff. Certainly that poetry was probably written at the age my son is now. So there's a lot of precious there. And I guess before I go any further, I want to say that's my something new is I've overhauled my space so that I can focus on my own wisdom first. And that meant surrounding myself with my own wisdom so that it's the first thing I see when I'm having my time to relax or be, do meditation or whatever. Instead of reaching for someone else's books, now I can reach for my own easily instead of finding them in bins and boxes in the garage. So that's step one, I think, of marrying myself. And I invite you to consider marrying yourself by really figuring out, what do you already have? What is in, your garage or somewhere in a box somewhere that you should pull out, or you might want to pull out to find out what still sparks joy for you. It doesn't have to be a whole production like I'm doing with this Marrying Myself program or project, but maybe, take an hour a week to go through your old stuff and see what still sparks joy, and what you never know what you're going to find there. All right. So next category, which is, it's all related, as you've noticed, it's all related to building a sanctuary, right? And for me, that meant pulling out my old wisdom, my journals, and really centering that first, which is very hard for me to do. I write a lot about it in the post. So if you want to go look at that, you are invited to do so. But the next category, after something old, something new, is, of course, something and that is something borrowed. This week, the something borrowed is in perfect alignment with the theme of this week. I always have had a sanctuary. I have always created, regardless of where we are, my own private space, or at least taking a little bit of time so that I can be right with myself, so that then I can be present for my beloveds. And it took a long time for me to do that. I didn't do that before I was with my husband. Now we've been together 28 years. I always was always with people all the time and never claimed my own space. I did when I was little, when things were chaotic, but I really, as in relationships, I wasn't great at that. And that's part of my disappointment now. When I go through my journals, I realize I didn't write as much as I wish I had during some of the years that were the most tumultuous. So, but, I give myself grace, because sometimes I was scared that other people would see what I was writing. Sometimes, and oftentimes, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't give myself permission. I didn't know how to give myself permission to claim that time. Well, now I do. And I have my journals behind me, and I have my little nook and my closet. But it was just so perfect, because I introduced you last week to a creator here on Substack her name is Kyra Fison Gardner. I hope I'm saying your name right, Kyra. But I joined her. She has let me show you her website, her Substack rather. One moment, share screen. And she has, her Substack is called Women at the Edge of the Woods, with Kyra Fison Gardner. I don't know if it's Fison or Fison. Anyway, she writes and invites women to, it says, a modern publication for women in their second becoming, feminine sovereignty and crone wisdom for women over 50, which is so in alignment. But I was really hesitant to join any programs. As I said at the beginning of this live stream, the whole point of marrying myself is that I center my own wisdom first, and that I don't join other people's groups. I actually didn't unsubscribe, but I basically let some of my favorite coaches know that I wouldn't be doubling down and joining their next programs and stuff like that, because I really needed to focus on myself and my wisdom. That said, one of the things that I found was that I'm trying to step into community. So not just centering my own wisdom, but centering my own wisdom and stepping into more of a public sphere, like I used to be when I was in my broadcasting days or my video podcasting days. There was a lot more of a public element. Well, during the years of what I call cocooning with my little, my little kids when they were really little, and really throughout the child rearing years, I've spent a lot of time in my quiet sanctuaries. I've got the spaces here in our home now that we're landlocked in New Mexico, because my son doesn't like the boat and doesn't want to live on it. So for the next few years, we're going to be here mostly. But even when we were on boats, I always claimed space and sanctuary, essentially my little sanctuaries. And sometimes that was literally a corner of a cabin with a tiny little shelf that I was able to just like, I think my kids and my husband, I helped teach them that if mommy is sitting here, she's doing her writing and she needs this time for herself. And so claiming that space as a sanctuary has always been important to me for my mental health, for my becoming the best mom, the best partner, the best person that I want to be. But as I'm stepping into community, trying to take that private work that I've been doing and sharing it with others, and basically, last week, if you go back to Marrying Myself episode, and I learned from a creator named Jo Barnes. She helped challenge me to create, to come up with my like personal mantra or like core offering. And it's that I create safe gathering spaces for connecting, curating, creating, and communicating in community. And as I started realizing that is the core of what I want to do in this next chapter, that means I have to step into community. And that's the part that probably scares me the most. I've been burned. I think probably most of us have when it comes to the community and the world at large. The word community can be very overwhelming. I wanted a safe gathering space. And that is why this week's Something Borrowed is Kyra's offering. I don't think she has it open, like a new group open at this point, but she has an offering that I joined. I did end up joining her group, and it's called Room at the Edge of the Woods, I think. So basically it's part of the Women at the Edge of the Woods. And I think if you just follow her Substack and subscribe, if she has another offer, I'm sure she'll share that there. And she has a book release coming out soon. But anyway, I got in the mail. It made my day. Because I joined that group, I got this care package. And this little journal, this little book, it's like a workbook, came in it along with a little notebook to do some writing. This is called Sanctuary Within, Designing a Life That Feels Like Home. And it was written by Kyra. And it was perfect timing because I was worried about joining a group because I'm trying to center my own wisdom. But this was perfect. It's a very small group. There's only 5 of us total with Kyra. And we are basically working through the idea of creating our own sanctuaries and expanding that into community, which is what I am currently trying to do. So I was just going to read a little section because I was in Taos a couple weeks ago, and I wrote, I was working through the Sanctuary Within book, which was sent to me with this notebook by Kyra Feisen Gardner. And one of the things she asks is to reflect on peak moments. So peak moments from my life that just, thinking about them sparked joy for me, And a few things that I came up with was standing on the stage at the Sophia and the Mysterious School premiere. I wonder if I could find that. Probably can't. But basically, I wrote, I had helped these kids shine. I had brought people together and brought out their gifts for the world to see. I had created something beautiful, magical, and I got to share my own gifts in community. So what that was is when my kids were in elementary school, I had a club. I hosted a club where because during my broadcasting years and beyond, I have done some filmmaking. Part of dealing with the trauma of being a beat reporter, where I covered the most heinous crimes imaginable, was that I started writing. That was my therapy, to have a creative outlet. And I started writing screenplays. Then I started getting involved with a group of other screenwriters, and we started directing our screenplays. And I became a director of short films. So I used those skills when my kids were in elementary school, my daughters, and we did an entire year of filmmaking school, essentially. And I had the kids write, edit, and then, write the whole script. And then they did auditions and cast. And then I brought my friends who are professional filmmakers, because there's a whole filmmaking industry here in Albuquerque. And I had them come and help be the professionals to actually make the film. One of these days I'll share it. We ended up with this adorable film called Cookies for Callie. We had a big gala premiere in the nearby Performing Arts Center. And we all got dressed up in our ball gowns, and it was just a spectacular experience. I'm sorry I don't have photos and videos. I should have pulled that up, because it was really one of those special moments where I was stepping out into my authority, into my power, and I felt very confident, and I was helping other people in a community setting. So there's a lot more. I'm not going to go on too long, because I know I'm already making this a long live stream, which is fine if you're enjoying it. I'm really glad you're here. And if you are here live, please drop a note in the comments, because I see those. And of course, I love them. But anyway, that Sanctuary Within was very timely, because I realized Sanctuary isn't just that quiet, perfect little place that you have that's hidden, where you do your personal work. There's also community sanctuaries, right? Where we can be ourselves in community and practice stretching our muscles and figuring out how we want to step on stage together, or at least having a support system that helps us as we step on stage, not have our knees too wobbly and our voice cracking. So I want to thank Kyra and her community for helping me as I do that. And I hope you'll stick around, because I'm doing that here through marrying myself. That's the whole point. Okay, so you've had something old, something new, something precious. And of course, that leaves us with the last category, which is something blue. Okay, so the something blue is this blue journal. It is one of the ones that I pulled out from that bin, and I'm sad because it's mostly blank. A lot of blank pages through the whole thing, right? But it was from my last months of high school, and I actually didn't start right with my peers, because I needed to work to pay for college. So it's the last month of high school, and that semester, so basically the fall semester after my graduation, before I started college. I didn't write much, but what I wrote in here is like, wow. Most of it I will never share with anyone. I can't even imagine sharing it with my kids. Yes, I know that they're probably going to watch this. I'm going to hide this after this broadcast. Probably not. I don't lie. So it's tricky, because I'm honest with my beloveds, my kids and my husband. I always share everything I can, but I definitely got red in the face about some of the things I wrote. But it really did. It reminded me of how much I have overcome in my lifetime. And it also made me sad, because a lot of what I wrote here was edited. I edited for myself. In my own private journals, I edited myself, because I was afraid that my boyfriend at the time might find my journal and read it, which of course there's a reason he's ex. But I thought I would read just a little excerpt from it. And we'll just refer to the X as X in the parts where I mention his name in here. And it's kind of funny too, the theme of like those times when I wish I had written more. I wish I was just talking to my daughter yesterday, because she had been on an exchange program in London, and she was like, yeah, whenever things were frustrating and things were going wrong, I wrote in my journal, but like when things were great, I didn't write much. So it looks like everything was terrible. So I do recognize that journals are like, it is therapy. So I look back at it with compassion on myself, because sometimes I wrote a lot when things were not good, but that was usually after I was out of, bad situations, for fear that someone else might read it. So sometimes I didn't write what I really meant. But I know you go back and it's, I'm marrying myself. I already know in my deepest heart of hearts, I know what I went through, what I really meant. But anyway, this is funny. So, well, it's not funny, but I start with, well, I guess you could say I'm not the most consistent person in the world, but at least I admit it, which is interesting because I used to say that. That's something I used to say about myself. Not true anymore. And that's my little lesson to you today. You can change what you say about yourself, and it will change the way you see yourself and the way you behave. I used to say I was not consistent, and then I rapid released 5 mystery thrillers in 15 months. And you have to be consistent in order to do that. So this is no longer true, but I was 17 when I wrote this, so giving myself grace. What I mean by that is that it is now May 22nd, 1989, and I am now deciding to make a second attempt at keeping a serious journal or diary. Sadly, I did not. The reason I decided to start one, or at least try to, is not only because I'm about to graduate, but because oftentimes when I need to get something off my chest, either X gets mad or I am afraid that he will. So I usually don't tell or write anything anymore. I have finally decided that it's time for me to become in touch with my true feelings and to get some of my aggravations out of my mind and onto a piece of paper. So even back then, when I was 17, I had some awareness that I needed, I needed that therapy. I needed that outlet to express what I was going through, which is funny because I didn't fully express it, but at least I was trying, which I give myself credit for. Last Friday, we received our yearbooks, and it was so strange. I felt like at that very instant, everything was really starting to end. Throughout my whole senior year, I always stressed how I can't wait to graduate. But now that the time is really arriving, I'm not so sure I really want it to come anymore. This school year has been filled with hell and happiness. Sometimes it was kind of hard to distinguish. Oops, I bumped a button. Let me reread that last line. Sometimes it was hard to distinguish between the two. My relationship with X survived throughout it, though. But to be honest, I'm really surprised that we did last. To put it briefly and nicely, X and I seem to have conflicting personalities. And then I get into the relationship details, which were interesting. But that was my something blue. And that's going to wrap up this live stream too. I'm going to bring it to a close and just say that it's an interesting journey. It comes in fits and starts. I'm learning how to be more consistent. Speaking of consistent, when it comes to this project that I really care about. I did not sleep a lot last night because I posted the post that I'm hoping to eventually get posted Fridays. I didn't get it done at Friday, and I finish work. I don't work on Saturdays because of Shabbat. So then I tried to work on it Sunday, but my daughter is in town. And my son is here. And so all of this to say, I'm still a work in progress. I know you're still a work in progress, but the whole point of this project is learning how to center our own wisdom first and only accept the wisdom from others as it sparks joy and pertains to your journey of marrying yourself, of really rediscovering the parts of yourself that still spark joy, no matter what part of the journey you're on. You don't have to be going into the empty nester phase to start marrying yourself. And I'm curious where you are as you watch this and what could you do this week, not later in the future? What could you do this week to claim a tiny little space for yourself? It might be a little tiny corner where you light a couple candles and just take some time to just be with yourself. It might be digging out some old journals, a bin that hasn't been touched in years. It might be just going for a walk by yourself out in nature. Where do you find yourself? Where can you find yourself a little tiny sanctuary of time or space so that you can work on marrying yourself like I am marrying myself? All right, that's it for this week. I'm Rosa Linda Román. I go by Rosa Linda. This is my project, Marrying Myself, and I'm really grateful that you're here. You're one of the beloved guests that I'm inviting to my process of marrying myself. You know, you want to be at the wedding, and the fact that you're here tells me you're one of the people that might enjoy the party. So thanks for being along for the ride. Bye.